Good morning, friends, and welcome to the Teaching and Learning. Today, lesson 56, types of assessment. I will be sharing some important aspects and the types of the assessment. We are familiar with the assessment and we know the importance of the assessment in education. We are familiar with some types of the assessment, but some types of the assessment we don't know. So in this video, I'm going to share some important assessment types of the assessment that you might know. Sometimes we know, sometimes we practice, but we cannot identify what exactly this type of the assessment. Second thing, we know the importance of the assessment, but at what time and why we use assessment, that's the most important for the pedagogy test. There are the several questions related with the assessments in previous pedagogy test, in which the examiner asked about the questions in a descriptive form, that what type of the assessment we're going to use to measure, track, and assess the students' performance, to assess the students' progress, to assess the students' attainment. So every assessment has a different role. We cannot say that every assessment is going to measure the students' attainment. Of course not. There's a particular time period for each assessment, and there's each assessment, they have a different values and worth. So in this lesson, I'll be telling you the types of the assessment, the definition of the assessment, when you're gonna conduct these assessments, how we conduct these assessments, what are the examples of these assessments, and more. So stay with me and let's see the types of assessment. But before that, if you didn't subscribe the Teaching and Learning, please, it's a humble request. For more videos, press the subscription button and bell icon button. If you like video, please give me your feedback. So guys, let's see about the types of the assessment. As you can see on the screen, there are more than 7 types of the assessment, but in this video, I'm going to discuss the 7 types of the assessment. First is the pre-assessment or diagnostic assessment or baseline assessment. Formative assessment, summative assessment, confirmative assessment, norm reference assessment, criterion reference assessment, and Ipsative assessment. These are the 7 different types of assessment which are really important in the educations. Mostly we practice all of these things, all of these assessment in our academic year or in the classroom or in the schools. But as I have mentioned, that every assessment have a certain time period, or it has been assigned or designed or scheduled in academic calendar periodically. So let's see the first, what is pre-assessment and so on. As I have mentioned, that pre-assessment is also called diagnostic test or baseline test. This test an educators or school conducts at the beginning of the enrollment in order to observe or judge or check the strengths and weaknesses of the individual. Now, what is the worth of this? When you are checking the students' strength and weakness, that you are planning accordingly, that what type of the instructions he or she needs, and what gaps you want to fill for the certain grade level. So this assessment is helping to identify, to what we call find the gaps of the learning targets and find that what level this students is going to be meet, and what instructions is necessary to improve the level of the students or level of the individual. Now, this is completely based on the skills. You are going to check the skills for each and every subjects. Okay, that's based on mathematics, science, English, or etc. etc. And it will give you the clear picture of every individual students, that at what levels or this students stands, and you plan accordingly. So to know your students' strength and weakness and the skills and knowledge possessed before taking the instruction, pre-assessment data helps in creating the instruction. So instructions means that are teaching in the classroom, the way you are teaching, the strategies of the activities you are going to assign, the strength, that that what skills he or she is good in, and the weak area will help the teachers to plan accordingly. So the pre-assessment and the diagnostic assessment or baseline assessment, it helps to identify the level of the students by identifying the strength and weaknesses of skills. Secondly, we know and we are familiar the formative assessment. First, the formative assessment is an ongoing assessment, and it shows and it helps to measure the students' progress. So I will say it's a checkpoint, and every teacher during the classroom, it complies the different strategies and different tools of the formative assessment to measure the students' progress. And this will also help to, or in the instructions, in the teaching instrument. So this is the most important thing, that you or as a teacher tracks the students' learning and find the gaps during the learning, or what we call, and you plan accordingly, and you try to find the gap of the, or narrow the gap of in the instructions. Okay, so the goal of formative assessment to monitor and track the learning and find the gaps. It also helps to measure the progress of the student. Based on the formative assessment, teaching designs the instructions in order to narrow the gaps. So it can, what examples we can say, it is a small test in the school, quizzes, feedback from the students, asking the questions from to the students, checking understanding, okay, and discussion, and open-ended questions, students' participations, 1-minute answers, and MCQs is asking the questions. At the end of the lesson, you ask the students, or you give them a certain task in order to check that they understood the topic or not. These are the some tools and some methods of the, or checkpoints for the formative assessment in order to check the students' progress during the classroom, and you modify your instructions accordingly. Second, the summative assessment, which helps to understand, to measure the students' attainment. So I'll say not progress, and this summative assessment we use at the end of the topic, or at the end of the content, or at the end of the term. Okay, it is a periodically that we measure the students' progress on particular content. So it is a certain time period, and sometimes we conduct, twice in a year. Sometimes we conduct 4 times a year, or it depends on the semester, or what we call the patterns of the assessment of the schools. So summative assessment is to aim at assessing the extent to which the most important outcomes at the end of the instruction have been reached. So it can be at the end of the year, it can be at the end of the term, it can be mid-term. These are the some example of the summative exam. But I'll tell you one thing, which we commonly mistaken, that every assessment which is a part of the report card, that is called summative assessment. This is the point, okay? So you have to check it out. The confirmative assessment. Now, confirmative assessment, it's a new one, and the other one which I'm going to share after a few minutes. You might know about these things, but you have to wait and to understand what these assessments are. We are familiar with the baseline, we are familiar with the formative, we are familiar with the summative assessment, but confirmative assessment, really some of the educators know and we, but we apply. So the confirmative assessment is the what we call combination of the formative assessment and the summative assessment. But for summative assessment, it has a broader concept. So we can say that the summative assessment can be one of the narrower part of the confirmative assessment. But these this type of the assessment is the benchmark which has been set by the organizations for the particular grade or particular what we call section of the students, in order to measure the progress and attainment by comparing the last year's performance or comparing the last period of the performance. Now, in this assessment, there's a time period which has been assigned. It can be conducted after 6 months. It can be conducted after a year. So let's see, I will give you how these methods are going to be conducted and what are the types of the conduct. It cannot be the assessment in education, but we also conduct these type of the assessment in different financial institutions in form of the audit. So your goal with the confirmative assessment is to find out the instruction is still success after a year, means the instruction you have provided, the way of the teaching, the strategies you have been continuing since last year, are these applicable to continue, or these are they need to modify? Okay, if it is the helping the students to improve the progress and attainment, okay, if there's an improvement, okay, the grades, then it will be ongoing. If not, it will be changed, okay, for so that it will be kind of, you know, the confirmative assessment is a kind of the extensive form of the summative assessment. As I said, the broader concept of the summative assessment. Let's see how the conductor of it's collecting data. It can be after 6 months, 1 year, okay, then you have to measure, okay, or compare this data with the current confirmative assessment and find the gaps. What is the difference between? So by checking these things, you are checking the instructions time period, the way or the teaching of the strategies the teacher is going to follow. If it is a useful, it's aligned, it's a valid, it's a timely, they are performing very well, okay, and it's helping to improve the performance, okay, it is helping in to improve the rating of the school, rating of the grade, rating of the what we call at the national level, at the international level, okay, these ratings are helping, okay, so that we call the confirmative assessment. So I said it is a broader concept. How the broader concept that you are measuring these attainment and progress based on the national performance or based on the international benchmarks, okay. So this data is helping, and that if not, that the school will modify these teaching strategies or the instructions and they will increase the time period of the instruction. Let's see the next one, which is a non-referenced assessment. This compares a student's performance against an average norm. This could be the average national norm of the subject history, for example, is when the teacher compares the average grade of his or her student against average grade of the entire school. For example, grade 6, okay, as comparing the performance of the whole schools, how much they have improved. So the attainment of the grade 6 will be compared with the whole school's attainment, either they improved or not, okay. And this will be subject wise, that in the previous, okay, grade 6, what they have improved in English. For example, you will compare in the grade 5, okay, and what was the result of the grade 5 or average of the grade 5 in 2020, and now you are going to measure the average of the same grade in 2021 as a grade 26, and you will be finding the gap of the student. If the gap it has been improved, that means your teaching instructions are very useful. Sixth one, criterion reference. Okay, it measures the student's performance against a fixed set of the predefined criteria. Learning standards. We know that each subjects in American curriculum, we have a standards, Common Core and other state standards, NGSS standards. Okay, and each standards or indicator has a benchmark and has a certain skills. Okay, this criteria or this type of the assessment is conduct or measured against these curriculum standards, or what we call grade standards, in order to check the performance of the students, that what skills they have achieved and what skills they need to be taught. At the best of this assessment, you can repeat or you can reteach the skills in the next grade level or in the same grade level, in order to evaluate the course or in order to evaluate the standards. Okay, that you make sure that your students are meeting the grade level or not, because in standards we are teaching the skills, not a book. The last one, Ipsative Assessment, it measures the performance of the students against previous performance, term 1, term 3. If okay, they are in a term 3, you are going to check the measures, okay, term 2 and term 3 from student. With this method, you are trying to improve yourself by comparing previous result. Okay, as a teacher, you are going to improve that. What modification or strategies you have to modify. Okay, you're not comparing yourself against the other students, but the students' performance and your teaching studies and your instructions, which might help the students to improve their performance based on their previous result. So guys, these are the things, okay, and these are the type of assessment which are really useful, and it will help you into the pedagogy test, and it will give you the clear picture that what type of the assessments we used for what the measurements, either for attainment, progress, or we are comparing the data based on the national, or we are conducting based on the standards, all these things. Okay, so I hope that you like this information, and it's a humble request to subscribe this teaching and learning. If you have any questions regarding the assessment, feel free. Thank you so much. We'll be meeting in the next lesson. Till that, stay blessed and stay safe.